She thought the wolf was dying. That's the only reason anything made sense at first. 3 days it had stood on her porch, refusing to leave, refusing to eat, just staring at her through the frosted window with eyes that held something she couldn't name. Not hunger, not fear, something closer to urgency, to knowing, as if the animal carried a message written in a language she'd forgotten how to read. Elena Carr pressed her palm against the cold glass, her breath fogging the space between them. The wolf didn't move. Its silver coat was thick with snow, frost clinging to the guard hairs along its spine. Beautiful, impossible, terrifying in its stillness. She hadn't seen wolves this close to the ridge in 5 years. Not since before everything fell apart. Not since before she became the kind of woman who talked to the wind and expected it to answer back. Before we continue, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story is touching you already, make sure you're subscribed. I've got something extra special saved for tomorrow. The morning light spreads thin across the Cascade Ridge, turning the snow into something that looks like crushed diamonds. Elena stands in her cabin, coffee cooling in her hands, watching the wolf the way you watch a storm building on the horizon. With respect, with caution, with the understanding that some forces don't negotiate. 3 days ago it appeared. No tracks leading to her porch, no sound of approach. She'd open her door at dawn to feed the ravens, and there it was, sitting, waiting, staring at her with amber eyes that seemed to hold more intelligence than any wild thing should. She'd step back inside immediately, heart hammering, and watch through the window as the wolf settled onto the weathered boards like it had been invited, like it belonged there. That first day, she tried everything. She banged pots, hoping the noise would scare it off. The wolf didn't flinch. She threw a bucket of water near the edge of the porch. The wolf shifted slightly to avoid the splash, then resumed its vigil. She even considered calling someone, the ranger station, the county wildlife office, but her phone had been disconnected for months. Money was tight. Money was always tight. And if she was honest with herself, she didn't want anyone coming up here. Not anymore. The mountains had become her sanctuary and her prison, and she guarded both fiercely. By the second day, curiosity began to edge out fear. The wolf wasn't aggressive. It didn't growl or bare its teeth. It simply sat, occasionally shifting position, always watching. When she cracked the door to study it more closely, she noticed things that made her chest tighten with something between wonder and worry. The wolf was huge, easily 120 pounds, with a thick ruff of silver-gray fur that caught the light like water. Its paws were the size of her fists. But it was the eyes that held her, calm, purposeful, almost pleading. "What do you want?" she whispered through the door on the second night, her voice rough from disuse. "Why are you here?" The wolf's ears twitched forward. It didn't answer, of course. Wild things never did, but something in its posture shifted. It stood, stretched with a fluid grace of creature built for survival, then walked to the edge of the porch. It looked back at her once, then toward the barn. Elena's heart stuttered. The barn. She hadn't been inside the barn in 5 years. Not since the night her husband died. Not since the night that split her life into before and after. The night that taught her that mountains took more than they gave. That love was a currency you paid for in grief. The wolf looked at her again, then back to barn. The message was so clear it made her skin prickle. She closed the door, locked it, pressed her back against the wood, and forced herself to breathe. The barn held nothing but memories she'd buried under dust and darkness. Whatever the wolf wanted, it couldn't be in there. It couldn't be. But on the third morning, this morning, she wakes to silence, so complete it feels like the world has stopped breathing. She rises from the thin mattress, pulls on layers of worn wool, and moves to the window. The wolf is still there, but now it's lying down, head on its paws, body curved against the cold. And for the first time in 3 days, it looks tired, desperate, even, like something is running out, like time is running out. Elena's hands shake as she laces her boots. She tells herself she's being ridiculous. Wolves don't carry messages. Wolves don't lead humans anywhere except maybe into danger. This is nature being strange, that's all. An injured animal seeking shelter. A sick creature losing its fear of humans. But deep in the part of her that still remembers how to trust her instincts, The part that kept her alive through winters when the snow buried the road for months. The part that knew when storms were coming before the sky showed a single cloud. That part whispers something different. This wolf is here for a reason, and you need to find out what it is. She opens the door. The cold hits her like a physical force, stealing her breath, biting at her exposed skin. The wolf lifts its head immediately, ears forward, eyes locked on hers. For a long moment, neither of them moves. Woman and wolf, separated by 6 feet of snow-covered porch and 5 years of grief. Then Elena takes a step forward. The wolf stands, tail low but not tucked, posture alert but not threatening. It watches her with an intensity that makes her feel seen in a way she hasn't felt since Marcus. Since the last time someone looked at her and understood without words what lived beneath her skin. "Okay," she says, voice barely above a whisper. "Okay, show me." The wolf turns immediately, moving down the porch steps with careful precision, its massive paws finding purchase in the deep snow. It stops at the bottom, looks back to make sure she's following, then moves toward the barn. Elena's throat tightens. Every step feels like walking toward an edge she can't see, toward a drop she knows is there but can't measure. The barn looms ahead, its red paint long since weathered to a dull rust. The door she'd nailed shut 5 years ago still sealed, still holding back everything she couldn't face. The wolf stops at the barn doors. It sits, waits. Elena's hands are numb, and it's not just from the cold. She stares at those doors, at the wood grain she knows by heart, at the iron handle she used to grip without thinking. Behind those doors lived the last moments of her old life. The workshop where Marcus built furniture with his careful hands. The loft where they'd talked about converting the space for a child they'd never had. The tack room where they'd stored dreams alongside tools. She hadn't been able to face emptying it. Hadn't been able to face seeing his things scattered in the absence of him. So she'd locked it all away, nailed the doors shut, and pretended the barn didn't exist. But the wolf is staring at those doors like they hold the answer to every question it can't speak. Elena takes a breath that hurts going down. She moves forward, her boots crunching through the snow that's drifted against the barn's foundation. Her fingers find a crowbar she'd left leaning against the wall 5 years ago, placed there with a vague intention of, someday, that never came. The nails screech as she pries them free. The sound echoes across the empty ridge, carried by wind that tastes like pine and coming snow. 1 nail, 2, 3. The wood splinters slightly as the 4th nail gives way, and Elena has to blink against the burn in her eyes that has nothing to do with the cold. The doors swing open with a groan that sounds almost like relief. Darkness spills out, thick and dusty and unchanged. The smell hits her immediately. Old wood, leather, the ghost of sawdust, and underneath it all, the scent of time standing still. She clicks on the flashlight she grabbed from the cabin, its beam cutting through 5 years of abandonment. Everything is exactly as she left it. Marcus's workbench, tools arranged with the precision of a man who believed in order. The half-finished rocking chair he'd been building for Mrs. Chun down the valley. His jacket, still hanging on the hook by the door, collar turned up the way he always wore it. Elena's chest constricts so tightly she can't breathe. This was a mistake. She should close the doors, nail them shut again, bury this place deeper than... The wolf pushes past her, its shoulder brushing her leg with startling warmth. She gasps, the touch breaking through her spiral, and watches as the wolf moves deeper into the barn with obvious purpose. It's not exploring. It's not investigating. It knows exactly where it's going. The wolf stops at the back corner, near the tack room door. It scratches at the wood once, twice, then looks back at her. The message is clear. Here. Whatever you need to see is here. Elena's heart pounds as she moves forward, flashlight beam bouncing with each step. The tack room. She'd barely spent time in there, even when Marcus was alive. It was a space where he'd kept his grandfather's old saddles, boxes of family photos he'd been meaning to organize, the accumulated history of a man whose roots ran deep into these mountains. The door is closed but not locked. Her hand trembles as she reaches for the handle. The metal is cold enough to burn. She turns it, pushes the door open, and steps into a space that time forgot. Dust motes dance in her flashlight beam. Leather saddles hang from pegs, stiff with age. Boxes are stacked against the walls, labeled in Marcus's careful handwriting. Dad's tools. Mom's china. Grandpa's papers. The wolf moves to the far corner, to a section of wall that looks wrong. Elena moves closer, her breath coming faster. The wood grain doesn't match. The boards are newer, less weathered, and when she presses her hand against them, they give slightly, as if there's empty space behind them. Her pulse thunders in her ears. She sets the flashlight on a saddle, angling it toward the wall, then pulls at the boards with shaking hands. They come away easily, too easily, revealing they were never nailed in place, just fitted together to create the illusion of a solid wall. Behind them, there's a hollow space. And inside that space, wrapped in oilcloth and tucked into a metal box that gleams dully in the flashlight beam, is something that makes Elena's breath stop entirely. Papers. Stacks of them. Old certificates with ornate borders. Legal documents with official seals. And beneath them, wrapped in cloth that whispers like secrets when she touches it, something heavy and cold and impossible. Her hands shake as she unwraps the cloth. Gold bars. 6 of them. Small but unmistakably real, stamped with dates from the 1940s. And beneath them, a leather journal, its pages yellow with age, filled with handwriting she doesn't recognize. Elena sinks to her knees, the cold seeping through her jeans, the box cradled in her lap like something sacred or cursed. She can't tell which. The wolf settles beside her, close enough that she can feel its warmth, its steady breathing a counterpoint to her racing heart. With trembling fingers, she opens a journal. The first page is dated 1943. The handwriting is careful, feminine, determined. My name is Elena Carr. If you're reading this, it means they've finally taken everything else. But they can't take the truth. They can't take what's owed to us. And they can't take our mountains. Elena's vision blurs. Elena Carr, Marcus's grandmother. A woman she'd only heard about in stories, a woman who'd lived on this ridge through the Depression and the war, who'd buried her husband in these mountains and raised 3 children alone. A woman Elena had never known was hiding a fortune in gold and a truth someone wanted buried. The wolf presses closer, as if sensing the earthquake happening inside Elena's chest. She turns pages with shaking hands, reading words written 80 years ago by a woman who'd known. Who'd somehow known that someday someone would need to find this. Someone would need to know. The Blackwell Mining Company came in 1943. They said they wanted to buy mineral rights. We said no. They said they'd take them anyway. When my husband tried to fight it, he disappeared. They called it an accident, a fall in the mines. But I know the truth. I've always known the truth. So I hid it all. The gold he'd found in our creek before they came. The deeds proving we own not just our land, but the mineral rights beneath it. The contracts showing Blackwell forged our signatures, stole what was ours, built their fortune on our loss. I couldn't fight them. Not alone. Not as a woman in 1943, with 3 children and a dead husband. But I could hide this. I could wait. I could make sure that someday, when the time was right, someone from our blood would find it. Someone who'd know what to do. The truth doesn't die. It just waits. Elena can't breathe. The barn spins around her. 5 years of isolation and grief suddenly cracking open to reveal something bigger. Something that spans generations and injustice and buried truths. The Blackwell Mining Company. She knows that name. Everyone in the valley knows that name. They're the biggest landowner in the region now. The company that bought up half the mountain properties over the last century. The company that's been pressuring her to sell for the last 5 years, ever since Marcus died, and she became the sole owner of this ridge. The company that's been sending increasingly aggressive letters, making increasingly generous offers, hinting increasingly clearly that it would be unfortunate if she continued to refuse. She'd thought they just wanted the land for development, for resorts or logging or some other way to turn wilderness into profit. But this changes everything. Her hands shake as she picks up the deeds. They're old, formal, covered in legal language she struggles to parse. But certain words jump out. Mineral rights, perpetuity, all deposits including but not limited to gold, silver, copper, and rare earth elements. Rare earth elements. Her mind races. She's read about them. Minerals essential for batteries, electronics, renewable energy. Minerals worth billions, if you knew where to find them. And according to these deeds, signed and sealed in 1898, the Carr family owns the rights to every mineral beneath 2,000 acres of ridge, including the land the Blackwell Mining Company has been operating on for the last 80 years. The wolf makes a low sound, something between a whine and a growl. Elena looks at it, really looks at it for the first time, and sees something that makes her chest tighten with a new emotion, something fragile and fierce at once. This wolf didn't come here by accident. It didn't spend 3 days on her porch by chance. Somehow, impossibly, it knew. It knew she needed to find this. It knew time was running out. She reaches out slowly, her hand hovering over the wolf's head. It watches her with those amber eyes, patient, knowing. When her fingers finally touch its fur, the wolf leans into the touch, just slightly, just enough. "Thank you," Elena whispers, her voice breaking on the words. "I don't know how you knew, but thank you." The wolf's tail moves once, a single sweep across the dusty floor. Elena pulls herself together, forces her mind to work through the shock. She's holding evidence that could upend 80 years of theft, could expose one of the region's most powerful companies as built on fraud and possibly murder. She's holding a fortune in gold and mineral rights worth potentially hundreds of millions of dollars. And she's sitting alone in a barn on an isolated ridge with no phone, no transportation, except an old truck that barely starts, and no way to know if the people who've been pressuring her to sell are the same people who killed Marcus's great-grandfather in 1943. The thought hits her like cold water. What if Marcus knew? What if that's why he died? No. She shakes her head. Marcus died in a climbing accident, a fall in the mountains. The Rangers investigated. It was ruled accidental. But then again, that's what they said about Catherine's husband, too. Elena's breath comes faster. The barn suddenly feels smaller, the shadows deeper. She needs to think. She needs a plan. She needs to... The wolf stands abruptly, ears swiveling toward the barn door. A low growl rumbles in its chest. The first threatening sound is made in 3 days. Elena freezes, her flashlight beam fixed on the boxes in her lap. Outside, she hears something that turns her blood to ice. An engine, coming up the mountain road, coming to her cabin. No one comes up here, not in winter, not without calling ahead, not unless they have a very specific reason. The wolf's growl deepens. It moves to the door, body tense, hackles raised. Every instinct Elena has honed over 5 years of survival suddenly screams the same message. Danger. Hide. Now. She moves on autopilot. Training kicking in from years of living alone, of learning to trust the warnings the wilderness gives. She shoves the gold bars back into the metal box, stacks the papers on top, wraps everything in the oilcloth. The journal. She hesitates, then shoves it into her jacket, the leather warm against her ribs like a second heartbeat, the boards that hid the hollow space. She fits them back into place as best she can in the dim light, hand shaking, breath coming in sharp bursts. The tack room door closes with a whisper. The barn doors, she left them open, damn it, but closing them now would take time she doesn't have. The engine sound grows louder. Multiple vehicles. More than one. Elena kills her flashlight and moves to the barn side window, the one that looks toward the cabin and the road beyond. Through the dirty glass, she sees headlights cutting through the morning gloom. 2 trucks. Black. Expensive. Not Ranger vehicles. Not delivery trucks. They stop in front of her cabin. 4 men climb out. They're dressed too well for the mountains, their boots too new, their jackets too clean. But it's their posture that tells Elena everything she needs to know. The way they move with casual authority. The way they skin the property like they're assessing value rather than visiting. The way the lead man gestures toward her open cabin door with the confidence of someone who's used to taking what he wants. The wolf presses against her leg, still growling, the sound barely audible but constant. Elena's mind races. They know she's here. They probably saw the smoke from her morning fire. But maybe they don't know she's in the barn. Maybe they'll search the cabin first. Maybe she has time to what? Run deeper into the mountains in winter with no supplies? Hide in a barn they'll inevitably search? Fight 4 grown men with nothing but a crowbar and a wolf that, for all its protectiveness, is still a wild animal? Her fingers find her phone in her pocket. The disconnected phone that's worthless except as a paperweight. She let the service lapse months ago when money got tight, telling herself she didn't need it, that she didn't want to talk to anyone anyway. That decision suddenly feels catastrophically stupid. The men split up. 2 head for the cabin. 2 start walking the property, examining the outbuildings, the woodshed, moving with a systematic approach of people who've done this before. Moving toward the barn. Elena's heart hammers. So hard she's certain they'll hear it across the clearing. The wolf trembles beside her, every muscle coiled, ready to spring. She puts a hand on its back, feels the tension there, the barely controlled violence. "Not yet," she breathes, barely a whisper. "Not yet." The men are 30 feet away. 20. 10. Elena backs deeper into the barn, moving by feel, her hands finding the familiar shapes of Marcus's tools in the darkness. A hammer, a heavy wrench. Not much against 4 men, but better than nothing. The wolf moves with her, silent now, a ghost in the shadows. 5 feet from the barn doors, the men stop. Elena can hear their voices now, low and professional. Doors are open. She's been inside. Recently. Snow's disturbed. Wanting to check it? A pause. Then a third voice, one that carries more weight than the others. "No. Get the others. I want everyone here when we do this. No mistakes this time." This time, the words echo in Elena's head. This time, meaning there was a last time, meaning they've done this before, meaning Marcus. Her throat closes. She can't breathe, can't think, can only stand frozen in the darkness, while her world reorders itself around a truth she'd spent 5 years refusing to see. The men move away, back toward the cabin. Elena hears them calling to the others, hears engines starting, hears the sound of vehicles repositioning. They're setting up, planning, getting ready to do this properly. She has minutes, maybe less. The wolf nudges her leg hard, urgent. When she looks down, those amber eyes catch the faint light from the window, reflecting it back like twin flames. The wolf turns, moves deeper into the barn, toward the back wall where the old emergency exit leads into the forest. The exit Marcus had insisted on building, saying every barn needed a back door just in case. She thought he was being paranoid. Now she understands he was being prepared. Elena follows. The metal box clutched her chest, the journal pressed against her ribs like armor. Behind her, she hears the men returning, hears their boots crunching through snow, hears one of them say, "Let's do the barn first." She might be hiding in there. She doesn't run. Running makes noise. Instead, she moves like the wolf does, low, quiet, purposeful. The back door is hidden behind old hay bales Marcus had stacked years ago. She shoves them aside with desperate strength, finds the latch, pulls. The door opens silently. Marcus had oiled those hinges every year, religious about maintenance even when it seemed pointless. Especially when it seemed pointless. "Oh, God, Marcus, did you know? Were you trying to protect us? Is that why you died?" No time for grief or rage, or any of the emotions clawing at her throat. She slips through the door into the forest beyond, the wolf at her heels. Behind them, she hears the barn doors creak wider, hears heavy boots on the wooden floor, hears a voice say, "Spread out, check everything." The forest swallows them. Pine trees press close, their branches heavy with snow, creating a canopy that blocks the morning light and turns the world into shades of gray. Elena moves by instinct, following game trails she knows by heart, trails she's walked 1,000 times in 5 years of isolation. The wolf ranges ahead, then circles back, its massive paws barely leaving prints in the soft snow, leading, guiding, as if it knows exactly where they need to go. Behind them, muffled by distance and trees, Elena hears shouting. They've discovered she's not in the barn. They found the back door. They're searching. She moves faster, clutching the box, the journal, the evidence that could destroy them or save her, depending on who she reaches first. Her breath comes in clouds that hang in the cold air like accusations. Her legs burn. Her hands are numb. But she doesn't stop, because somewhere in these mountains, hidden in a box her husband's grandmother buried 80 years ago, is a truth powerful enough to kill for. And Elena has just become the only person standing between that truth and the people who've already killed at least twice to keep it buried. The wolf looks back at her, amber eyes steady, and Elena understands with sudden, crystalline clarity. This is only the beginning. The forest becomes a maze of whitened shadow, each tree identical to the last, each ridge bleeding into the next until Elena loses track of direction entirely. But the wolf doesn't hesitate. It moves through the wilderness like water finding its level, always downhill, always purposeful, occasionally pausing to let her catch up before pressing forward again. Her lungs burn. The thin mountain air cuts like glass with each breath. The metal box grows heavier with every step, its weight both literal and metaphorical. 6 gold bars and 80 years of buried truth pressing against her ribs, making her arms ache, making her realize she's carrying something far bigger than herself. Behind her, the voices have faded, but she knows better than to feel relief. Men like that don't give up. They regroup. They plan. They come back with more resources and fewer scruples. She's bought herself time, nothing more. The wolf stops at a frozen creek. Its surface a sheet of white ice marbled with gray. Elena recognizes this place. Widow's Creek, the locals call it, though she's never known why. It runs parallel to the main valley road, about 3 miles east of her property. If she follows it downstream, it will lead her toward civilization, toward people, toward help, or toward more danger. She doesn't know anymore. Doesn't know who to trust in a world where her husband's death might not have been an accident, where powerful men casually discuss eliminating obstacles, where an old woman's hidden fortune suggests crime spanning generations. The wolf crosses a creek in 2 powerful bounds, then looks back expectantly. Elena tests the ice with one boot. It holds, and follows more carefully, her feet sliding slightly on the smooth surface. Halfway across, she hears it, the distant buzz of engines, snowmobiles. They're not searching on foot anymore. Her heart lurches. She scrambles up the far bank, branches whipping at her face, snow cascading down her collar. The wolf is already moving again, but differently now. Faster, with more urgency, ears swiveling to track the sound behind them. They can't outrun snowmobiles. Not through open forest. Not when she's exhausted and carrying a box that might as well be made of lead for how heavy it feels now. But the wolf isn't leading her through open forest. It's heading up, toward the rocky outcroppings that ridge this section of mountain, toward terrain where machines can't follow but 4 legs and determination can. Elena's thighs scream as the slope steepens. Her boots slip on hidden ice beneath the snow. Once, she goes down hard on her knee, pain shooting through her leg, the box nearly tumbling from her grip. The wolf circles back immediately, pressing against her side, warm and solid and somehow steadying. She uses its bulk to lever herself upright, ignoring the way her knee throbs, ignoring everything except the need to keep moving. The snowmobile sounds grow louder. They're getting close. Too close. The wolf leads her into a narrow defile between 2 massive boulders, a space barely wide enough for her shoulders, invisible unless you knew it was there. On the other side, the ground drops away sharply. Not quite a cliff, but steep enough that descending requires hands and feet, requires trust that the rocks will hold. Elena doesn't hesitate. She tucks the box against her body with one arm and uses the other to find handholds in the cold stone. The wolf descends beside her with the casual grace of a creature designed for exactly this terrain. Her feet find purchase on ledges she can barely see. Her fingers grip stone that bites with cold. Below, she hears the snowmobiles arrive at the creek, hears them idle, hears voices shouting over the engine noise. Tracks end here. She crossed the ice, fan out downstream. What about up? Those rocks. A pause. Then, she wouldn't go up. Too steep. Too exposed. She'll head for the valley. Try to reach town. Get back on the machines. We'll catch her on the road. The engines rev and fade, moving away downstream. Elena clings to the rock face, hardly daring to breathe. They're wrong about her heading for town, or rather, she was heading that way, until the wolf led her up instead of down. Did it know? Could it possibly have understood that up meant safety when every human instinct screams that civilization lies below? She doesn't let herself think about it too hard. Thinking leads to questions she can't answer, to impossibilities she can't explain. Better to just follow, to trust a creature that's kept her alive this far. They reach the bottom of the descent. Elena's arms shake with exhaustion. Her knee throbs where she fell. But they're in a small hidden valley now, sheltered on three sides by rock faces, the fourth open to a dense stand of old-growth timber. The sound of snowmobiles is distant, fading further. The wolf leads her into the trees, deeper into shadow, until they reach a massive fallen cedar, its trunk hollowed by age and rotted into a space just large enough for a person to crawl inside. The wolf stops, looks at her, then at the hollow, then back at her. The message is clear. Hide. Rest. Wait. Elena doesn't argue. She crawls into the hollow, dragging the box after her. The space smells of damp wood and earth, but it's dry and surprisingly warm, insulated by the thick cedar bark and a century of decomposition. The wolf squeezes in beside her, a warm mass of fur and muscle that fills the remaining space, blocking the entrance, creating a living door between her and the world outside. For the first time in hours, Elena lets herself stop, lets herself feel the exhaustion crushing down on her shoulders, lets herself acknowledge that her hands are shaking, her breath coming in gasps that have nothing to do with exertion and everything to do with shock. For men came to her cabin this morning. For men who spoke casually about this time and no mistakes, who moved with the confidence of people who'd done this before, who searched her property like they owned it, who might have killed Marcus, who might have killed his great-grandfather, who would certainly kill her if they found her before she could reach help. She's sitting in a hollow tree with a wolf and a box of gold, running for her life from men whose names she doesn't even know. The absurdity of it crashes over her, and for a moment she wants to laugh. The kind of laugh that turns into sobbing, the kind that means you're breaking. She swallows it down hard, forces herself to breathe slowly, to think clearly. The journal. She still has Catherine's journal pressed against her ribs. With trembling fingers, she pulls it out, careful not to damage the fragile pages. The wolf shifts slightly, giving her room to angle the book toward the faint light, filtering through gaps in the cedar bark. She turns past the opening entry, past Catherine's description of her husband's accident, and finds pages filled with meticulous documentation. Dates, names, transactions. Catherine hadn't just hidden the truth, she'd built a case. August 1943. James Blackwell offered $500 for our mineral rights. We refused. He said we were making a mistake. September 1943. Thomas went to the county office to file a complaint about Blackwell's men trespassing on our land. Clerk said they had no record of our deeds, though we filed them in 1898. Thomas was certain the records were tampered with. October 1943. Thomas planned to travel to the state capitol to file our complaint there. He never came home. They said he fell in an abandoned mine shaft on our property. But Thomas knew every inch of this land. He would never have fallen. And the mine they claimed he fell into? We'd sealed that shaft in 1940. November 1943. Blackwell Mining filed paperwork claiming they'd purchased our mineral rights through a verbal agreement with Thomas before his death. I have the original deeds. I have Thomas's signature. These documents prove the Blackwell claim is a forgery. But when I tried to contest it, the judge ruled against me. Said a widow's testimony wasn't sufficient evidence against a legitimate business. December 1943. I'm hiding everything. The gold Thomas found in our creek. The gold that first attracted Blackwell's attention. The original deeds. This journal. Everything that proves what they did. If I can't get justice now, maybe someone can later. Maybe when women's testimony matters. Maybe when the truth outweighs money. Elena's throat tightens. She turns more pages, finding entry after entry documenting injustice. Catherine had watched the Blackwell Mining Company build an empire on stolen land, had watched them expand across the valley, buying or stealing rights from other families, had collected evidence of pattern. A dozen families who'd refused to sell, a dozen families who'd suffered accidents or business failures or unfortunate circumstances that forced them to leave. But Catherine had been smart. She'd hidden the evidence where Blackwell's men wouldn't think to look. In a barn on land they didn't yet control, behind a false wall in a tack room no one bothered with. And she'd waited through decades, waited through wars and depressions and the slow grinding of time, waited for someone to find it. Someone like Elena, someone with Carr blood and Carr stubbornness and Carr unwillingness to let injustice stand. The weight of it settles over her shoulders like a physical thing. Catherine had chosen this burden deliberately, had hidden it, preserved it, passed it forward through generations like a torch in darkness. Now Elena holds that torch, and she has no idea what to do with it. Outside the hollow tree, the forest sounds different. The wind has shifted, bringing the smell of snow. A storm is coming. She can feel it in the pressure against her ears, in the way the temperature drops another degree. Good. A storm will cover her tracks, will force the men searching for her to take shelter, will buy her more time. But time for what? She can't stay in this tree forever. Can't survive a winter storm in wet clothes with no supplies. Can't simply wait for rescue that won't come, because no one knows she needs rescuing. She needs a plan. Needs to think strategically instead of just reacting. Needs to remember the skills that kept her alive through 5 years alone. Skills Marcus taught her. Skills she thought she'd never need for anything except survival. First, assess her resources. She has the box with 6 gold bars. Well, she can't spend while running for her life. She has Catherine's journal, evidence that could destroy a powerful company, if she can get it to the right people. She has wet clothes, tired muscles, and an injured knee. She has a wolf that seems determined to keep her alive for reasons she doesn't understand. What she doesn't have: a phone, allies, shelter, food, or any clear sense of who the enemy is beyond Blackwell Mining Company, and for men in black trucks. Second, assess her options. She can try to reach town, expose everything publicly, and hope that daylight and witnesses will protect her. Risk. The men are searching the road to town. Risk. She doesn't know who in town might be connected to Blackwell, who might be on their payroll, who might be the reason Marcus died. Risk. She'd be trusting institutions, police, courts, officials that failed Catherine 80 years ago. She can hide in the mountains, wait for the search to die down, then make her move when they think she's dead or gone. Risk winter storms. Risk exposure. Risk giving them time to destroy evidence, to cover their tracks, to ensure that even if she survives, she can't prove anything. She can try to reach someone she trusts. But who does she trust? She's been isolated for 5 years, has no close friends anymore. Her family is scattered, distant, strained by her refusal to leave the mountain after Marcus died. The Rangers? Maybe. But Blackwell has money and influence. How deep does their corruption run? The wolf shift beside her, drawing her attention. It's watching her with those unsettling amber eyes, as if reading her thoughts, as if understanding her paralysis. "I don't know what to do," Elena whispers, her voice cracking. "I don't know who to trust. I don't even know how you fit into all this." The wolf's gaze doesn't waver. Somehow, impossibly, it seems to be waiting for her to figure something out, to remember something, to connect dots she hasn't yet seen. Elena closes her eyes, forces herself to think past the fear and exhaustion. What does she know? Really know? The men came this morning. They came in multiple vehicles, with multiple people, organized and prepared. They weren't surprised to find her cabin. They were expecting to find her there, which means they knew she'd be home, knew she hadn't left, had probably been watching the property, waiting for something. But waiting for what? They've been pressuring her to sell for 5 years. Why suddenly escalate to violence now? What changed? She thinks back over the last few weeks. Nothing has changed in her routine. She hasn't done anything different, hasn't contacted anyone, hasn't made any moves that would draw attention. The only unusual thing has been the wolf. Elena's eyes snap open. The wolf appeared 3 days ago. The men came today. That's not coincidence. But how would they know about the wolf? How would they even know to watch for something like that? Unless the wolf has done this before. Unless it's led others to the barn, to the hidden evidence. Unless this isn't the first time someone has tried to expose the truth. And it's not the first time the wolf has intervened. The thought is insane. Wolves don't live 80 years. They don't carry messages across generations. They don't understand human justice or corporate conspiracy or any of the things that would be required for this to make sense. But then again, nothing about the last 3 days has made sense. And sometimes, Elena has learned, you have to accept impossibility because it's the only explanation that fits. She looks at the wolf with new eyes. "Who are you?" she whispers. "What are you?" The wolf blinks slowly, a gesture that somehow feels deliberate, meaningful. Then it rises, squeezes out a hollow tree, and looks back at her expectantly. Time to move again. Time to stop asking questions and start acting. Elena crawls out into the cold. The sky is darkened with storm clouds, the air thick with the promise of heavy snow. Her knee screams when she puts weight on it, but it holds. She'll manage. She always manages. The wolf sets off through the timber, and Elena follows, the box clutched against her chest like a child she's carrying to safety. She still doesn't have a plan beyond follow the wolf and don't get caught, but sometimes that's enough. Sometimes survival is just putting one foot in front of the other until a better option appears. They travel for what feels like hours, though it's hard to measure time in the shadowland beneath the old-growth canopy. The wolf leads her through terrain she doesn't recognize, gullies and ridges that don't match her mental map of these mountains. Either they travel farther than she realized, or the wolf knows routes she doesn't, secret paths that exist outside the boundaries of her 5-year isolation. The snow starts falling as they crest a ridge, not the gentle flurries of morning, but heavy wet flakes that stick to everything, accumulating fast. Elena's inadequate jacket is soaked through within minutes. Her teeth start chattering. The cold that had been manageable becomes dangerous. She needs shelter. Real shelter, not just a hollow tree. Needs warmth and dry clothes and time for her body to recover from the morning's exertions. Needs to stop before hypothermia makes decisions for her. The wolf seems to sense her deteriorating condition. It alters course, moving with more urgency now, leading her downslope toward a structure. Elena blinks snow from her lashes, certain she's hallucinating. But no, there's definitely something there. A building, small, constructed of weathered logs, nearly invisible against the forest. As they get closer, she recognizes what it is, an old ranger cabin, one of the fire lookout stations built decades ago and abandoned when the service switched to aerial surveillance. She'd forgotten this one existed. Marcus had mentioned it once, years ago, on one of their hikes. Said it was too remote to be useful, too decrepit to be safe. But right now, decrepit sounds like paradise. The door is locked, but the lock is old and the wood around it is rotten. Elena puts her shoulder against it and shoves. On the third try, the door frame splinters and the door swings inward, revealing a single room that smells of mouse droppings and mildew, but is blessedly dry and marginally warmer than outside. She stumbles inside. The wolf follows, shaking snow from his coat in an explosion of droplets. Elena drops the box on a rickety table, her arms numb from carrying it. Her whole body is shaking now, the cold having worked its way deep into her core. Hypothermia. She's sliding into hypothermia. She recognizes the symptoms. The shaking, the confusion starting to cloud her thoughts, the way her fingers won't quite obey her commands. She needs to get warm, needs to get dry, needs to do it now before things get worse. The cabin has a small wood stove in one corner, ancient but intact. Someone, probably other hikers seeking shelter, has left a small stack of firewood and kindling beside it. Elena's hands shake as she opens the stove door, as she arranges kindling with trembling fingers, as she searches her pockets for the waterproof matches she always carries. Thank God for old habits. Thank God Marcus drilled into her the importance of being prepared. Thank God for small mercies like waterproof matches and abandoned cabins and wolves that somehow know where to lead you. The match catches. The kindling catches. Within minutes, blessed warmth begins to spread through the small space. Elena strips off her wet jacket, her wet outer layers, hangs them on nails driven into the wall for exactly that purpose. She's left in a thermal undershirt and jeans that are damp but not soaked. It'll have to be enough. The wolf settles near the stove, its thick coat steaming slightly as the heat reaches it. Elena sinks down beside it, her back against the log wall, her hands held out to the growing warmth. For long minutes, she just sits, letting her body remember what warmth feels like, letting the shaking slowly subside, letting herself believe that maybe, possibly, she's going to survive this day. Outside, the storm intensifies. Wind howls around the cabin, rattling the shutters, finding every gap in the ancient walls. Snow accumulates on the windowsills. But inside, the fire burns steady, and Elena's alive, and that's enough for now. When she can think clearly again, when the hypothermia's fog is lifted from her mind, she turns her attention to Catherine's journal once more. There has to be something in here, some clue about where to go, who to trust, how Catherine expected this evidence to be used. She finds it near the back of the journal. A list of names written in Catherine's careful script, labeled simply, The Honest Ones. Samuel Chun, county clerk, honest but powerless. Margaret O'Brien, teacher, knows the truth, too afraid to speak. Father Michael O'Donnell, priest, sympathetic, but won't break confessional seal. Robert Whitehorse, tribal elder, suffered same injustice, has no legal recourse. Elizabeth Carr Morrison, my daughter, too young now, but someday. Elena's breath catches. Elizabeth Carr Morrison. She knows that name. It's Marcus's grandmother, Catherine's daughter, the woman who'd raised Marcus's father on the same mountain, who'd lived her whole life knowing her mother had hidden some terrible secret but never finding it, who died 10 years ago carrying that knowledge to her grave. But there's more. Catherine has left notes beside each name. Samuel retired in 1950, died in 1961, gave copy of original deeds to his son James. Before death, Margaret left Valley in 1946, married, moved to Portland. Father O'Donnell transferred in 1945, died in 1952. Robert Whitehorse. His grandson Thomas might remember the story as Elizabeth. I told her nothing, wanted to protect her, but she knows something is hidden. She's too smart not to have guessed. Elena's mind races. Catherine had tried to create a network of witnesses, people who knew fragments of the truth, even if they didn't have the whole picture. And she left breadcrumbs, clues about where those fragments might still exist. James Chun, son of the county clerk. If he inherited his father's papers, he might still have copies of those original deeds. That would be independent verification. Proof that wasn't hidden in a barn. Proof that exists in the normal world. Thomas Whitehorse. If he knows the stories his grandfather told, he might have evidence of other families who suffer the same theft, who could form a class action, who could turn this from one woman's word against a company into a pattern of systematic fraud. Margaret O'Brien. If she's still alive, she'd be 90-something now, but possible she might remember what she witnessed as a young teacher in the Valley in 1943. These aren't just random names. These are threads Elena can pull. These are allies, or at least sources of corroboration. These are ways to make this evidence matter beyond just her word against Blackwell's lawyers. She needs to find these people, or their descendants, needs to gather the fragments Catherine scattered 80 years ago and forge them back into something solid enough to stand on, needs to build a case not just on hidden gold in an old woman's journal, but on multiple witnesses, multiple sources, multiple pieces of evidence that together become undeniable. But first, she needs to survive the storm, needs to rest, needs to let her body recover enough to make the next move. The wolf's breathing has slowed, deepened. It's asleep, finally, its massive body relaxed in a way Elena hasn't seen in 3 days. She reaches out, rests her hand on its warm flank, feels the steady rise and fall of its breathing, feels, for the first time since Marcus died, like she's not entirely alone in the world. "We're going to do this," she whispers, not sure she's talking to the wolf or to Catherine or to Marcus or just to herself. "We're going to expose them. We're going to get justice. For Catherine, for Thomas, for Marcus, for everyone they've hurt." The wolf's ear twitches, but it doesn't wake. Outside, the storm rages. Inside, the fire crackles. And Elena lets herself close her eyes, just for a moment, just to rest. She dreams of mountains and wolves and women who hide truth in walls, waiting for daughters they'll never meet to find it. She dreams of Marcus, young and laughing, building secret doors into barns just in case. She dreams of gold bars that weigh more than metal has any right to weigh, heavy with the burden of justice deferred. She wakes to darkness and silence. The fire has burned down to embers. The storm has passed, leaving behind a peculiar quiet that follows heavy snow. The world muffled, softened, transformed. The wolf is awake, sitting by the door, waiting. Elena checks her watch. For hours have passed. It's early afternoon now. The men will have taken shelter during the worst of the storm, but they'll be searching again soon. She can't stay here. She feeds the last of the wood to the fire, warming herself for what's coming. Her clothes are dry now, mostly. Her knee still aches, but it's manageable. Her hands are steady. Her mind is clear. She has a plan now, or at least the beginning of one. First, get to town without being caught. Use the storm's aftermath as cover. The fresh snow will hide tracks. The reduced visibility will make it harder for them to spot her. Second, find James Chun. If he inherited his father's papers, if he has those deed copies, that's independent corroboration. That's something she can use. Third, contact Thomas Whitehorse. If he knows the stories, if he has evidence of other victims, that turns this into a pattern. That makes it harder to dismiss as one crazy woman's delusion. Fourth, go public. Not to local police. They might be compromised. Not to local media. They might be controlled. To someone bigger. State authorities. Federal authorities, if necessary. Someone Blackwell can't touch, can't threaten, can't silence. It's not a perfect plan. It has 1,000 holes and 1,000,000 ways to fail. But it's something. It's action instead of hiding. It's fighting back instead of running. She gathers her things. The box goes back under her arm. Precious and damning. The journal goes back inside her jacket, pressed against her ribs where she can protect it with her body if necessary. She takes a last look around the cabin. This place that saved her life. This anonymous shelter that exists outside the normal world. Thank you, she says to the empty room, feeling only slightly foolish. Places deserve gratitude too. Sometimes. The wolf leads her back into the forest, into the transformed landscape where everything is white and clean and new. Their tracks fill in behind them almost as fast as they make them. Perfect. They move through the afternoon, the wolf choosing routes that avoid roads, that stay in deep timber where visibility is limited. Elena's knee complains, but functions. Her body protests, but obeys. She's done harder things. She survived worse. She can do this. As the light begins to fail, winter days are short in the mountains. They reach the edge of a familiar ridge. Below, she can see the scattered lights of Pine Valley, the small town where she used to buy supplies, where she used to have a life before isolation swallowed her whole. It looks tiny from up here, fragile, like something you could hold in your hand and crush. Somewhere in those lights is James Chun. Somewhere down there is the beginning of justice. Somewhere in that small collection of buildings and lives is the answer to whether Catherine's 80-year wait was worth it. The wolf stops at the tree-line, unwilling to go further. It looks at her, then at the town, then back at her. The message is clear. This is as far as I can take you. The rest is up to you. Elena kneels in the snow, bringing herself eye level with the creature that saved her life. Multiple times in one day. I don't know if you understand me, she says quietly. I don't know what you are or why you helped me, but thank you for everything. The wolf leans forward, presses its forehead against hers for just a moment. The contact is warm, solid, real. Then it pulls back, turns, and melts into the forest like smoke, like it was never there at all. Elena stands alone at the forest's edge, the box under her arm, the journal against her heart, and the lights of town spread below her like fallen stars. Behind her, the mountains hold their secrets. Ahead of her, civilization waits with all its complications and compromises. She takes a breath that burns going down, takes a step forward, toward the lights, toward people, toward the messy work of seeking justice in a world that doesn't always want to give it. The snow crunches under her boots. The town grows closer with each step. And somewhere behind her, in the vast wilderness she's calling home for 5 years, a wolf watches until she's safe. Or safe enough, anyway. In these mountains, safe is always relative. The town looks different at night. Or maybe Elena is different. 5 years of isolation have changed the way she sees civilization. The electric lights feel too bright. The scattered buildings too close together. The presence of other humans simultaneously comforting and threatening. She approaches from the north, staying in the tree line as long as possible, watching for vehicles that might be searching for her. Pine Valley is small enough that everyone knows everyone's business, which means her arrival will be noticed. But it's also small enough that strangers stand out, which means the men hunting her will have a harder time operating invisibly. She's counting on that. Counting on small-town gossip and nosiness to create a protective web she can hide inside. She waits until full dark, until the streets are mostly empty, before making her move. The box is heavy in her arms, awkward to carry, impossible to hide. She wraps it in her jacket, hoping anyone who sees her will just think she's carrying supplies, not evidence that could topple an empire. The first person she needs to find is James Chun. But she can't just walk up to his door. If Blackwell has people in town, if they're watching anyone connected to the old story, Chen's house will be monitored. She needs information first. Needs to know who she can trust, who might be compromised, who might be willing to help. There's one person in Pine Valley who knows everything about everyone, who's been collecting gossip and truth in equal measure for 40 years, who never liked Blackwell mining and wasn't afraid to say so, Marge Fletcher, who runs the town's only diner. Elena circles around to the back of Fletcher's diner, approaching through the alley where the dumpsters sit. The kitchen door is propped open despite the cold. Marge has always hated the heat from the stoves, always kept that door cracked even in winter. Some things don't change. Elena slips inside into the familiar smell of coffee and frying meat and dish soap. The kitchen is empty. The dinner rushes over. The night cook probably out front chatting with the last stragglers. She moves quickly through the kitchen into the narrow hallway that leads to Marge's office, a cluttered closet room where the diner's owner does her books and smokes cigarettes she thinks no one knows about. The door is open. Marge sits at her desk, reading glasses perched on her nose, cigarettes smoldering in a chipped ashtray. She's older than Elena remembers, her hair completely gray now, her face more lined, but her eyes are the same sharp blue, missing nothing. Those eyes lift from the ledger she's studying and find Elena standing in the doorway. For a moment, neither woman speaks. Then Marge's eyebrows rise. "Well," she says, voice dry as desert wind, "you look like hell, Elena Carr." Elena almost laughs, almost cries, settles for something in between. "I need help, Marge." Marge stubs out her cigarette with deliberate care, studies Elena with an intensity that feels like being x-rayed. "Figured you might, when I heard about the trucks going up your way this morning. Heard they came back down without you. Heard they've been searching the forest roads all day." She pauses. "Heard they're offering money for information about your whereabouts." Elena's stomach drops. "How much?" "Enough to make people think twice about harboring you." Marge's expression doesn't change. "Lucky for you. I never like taking Blackwell money. Their cash spend's dirty." She stands, moves to the door, locks it. "You armed?" "No." "Stupid. Give me the box." You look ready to collapse. Elena hands over the box gratefully, her arms screaming with relief. Marge sets it on the desk, doesn't ask what's inside, doesn't pry, just gestures to the chair. "Sit before you fall down. When's the last time you ate?" "I don't remember." Marge leaves, returns 5 minutes later with a plate of meatloaf and mashed potatoes, a cup of coffee so strong it could strip paint. "Eat, then talk." Elena eats. The food tastes like civilization, like safety, like a kindness she'd forgotten existed. Her hands shake as she lifts the fork, but she gets it down, forces her body to accept fuel even though her stomach is twisted with stress. Marge watches her eat, smoking another cigarette, saying nothing. When Elena finally pushes the empty plate away, Marge speaks. "All right, tell me why Blackwell Mining wants you dead. How do you know they want me dead?" Because they've been trying to buy your land for 5 years, and you've said no. Because your husband died in a convenient accident that cleared the way for them to inherit if you died too. Because powerful men don't send for trucks and offer bounties unless they're scared of something. Marge leans forward. What did you find, Elena? Elena reaches inside her jacket, pulls out Catherine's journal, sets it on the desk between them like a bomb with a lit fuse. Evidence that Blackwell Mining was built on murder and fraud. Evidence that they've been stealing mineral rights from mountain families for 80 years. Evidence that they killed my husband's great-grandfather in 1943 and probably killed Marcus 5 years ago and are trying to kill me now. Marge picks up the journal with careful hands, opens it, reads the first page. Her expression doesn't change, but something shifts in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or vindication. Elena Carr, she says softly. I remember stories about her. Stubborn woman. Refused to leave her land even after her husband died. People thought she was crazy, staying up there alone with 3 kids. She looks up. She wasn't crazy, was she? No, she was protecting this. Elena opens a box, reveals the gold bars, the deeds, the documentation. Blackwell didn't just steal from the Carrs. According to Catherine's notes, they stole from dozens of families, built their empire on theft and murder and corruption that goes back generations. Marge whistles low. That's a hell of an accusation. It's a hell of a truth. Elena's voice is steady now, anger burning away the exhaustion. And I need to prove it. I need allies. I need people who remember, who can corroborate, who can't be threatened or bought. She leans forward. I need James Chun. Marge goes very still. How do you know about James Chun? Catherine's journal. She says his father Samuel had copies of the original deeds, gave them to James before he died. If James still has those copies. He does. Marge cuts her off. I know he does because he's been trying to get someone to look at them for 40 years. Every lawyer in the valley refuses. Every official tells him the statute of limitations has passed. Every time he brings it up, he gets reminded that accidents can happen to people who make trouble for Blackwell. She stubs out her cigarette. James Chun is 83 years old. Elena. He's got a bad heart and grandkids he wants to see grow up. You understand what you're asking. I'm asking him to help me finish what his father and Catherine started. I'm asking him to be brave when it matters most. Elena's voice cracks. I'm asking him to help me prove my husband didn't die for nothing. The silence stretches. Outside the office, the diner's normal sounds continue. Dishes clattering, voices murmuring, the jukebox playing something old and sad. Inside, 2 women stare at each other across a desk covered in evidence of old crimes and new dangers. Finally, Marge stands. Wait here. Lock the door behind me. Don't open for anyone but me, understand? Elena nods. Marge leaves, and Elena locks the door, then sits in the sudden silence with her heart pounding. She's committed now. Put her faith in Marge Fletcher's integrity and James Chen's courage. Either they'll help her, or they'll betray her, and she'll find out which very soon. 20 minutes pass. Each one feels like an hour. Elena paces a small office, too wired to sit, too exhausted to think clearly. She keeps seeing the wolf's amber eyes, keeps hearing Catherine's words. The truth doesn't die. It just waits. A knock. Elena. It's me. Elena unlocks the door. Marge slips inside, followed by an elderly Chinese man with silver hair and steady hands. James Chun. He's smaller than Elena expected, bent slightly with age, but his eyes are sharp and clear. Ms. Carr, he says formally. Marge tells me you have something I should see. Elena shows him everything. The journal, the deeds, the gold, Catherine's meticulous documentation. Chun reads with the careful attention of someone who's waited his whole life for this moment. His hand shakes slightly as he turns pages, but his voice is steady when he finally speaks. My father told me about Elena Carr. Told me she came to his office in 1943, tried to report her husband's murder, try and protect her mineral rights. Told me the county judge ordered him to lose the records, to claim they'd never been filed. Chun looks up, eyes wet but fierce. My father was an honest man. It destroyed him to be part of that corruption, even unwillingly. Before he died, he gave me copies of everything, the Carr deeds, the deeds from 6 other families Blackwell defrauded, all the paperwork proving systematic theft. Elena's heart races. Do you still have them? Hidden in my attic for 40 years, waiting for someone brave enough to use them. He meets her gaze. My father made me promise. If anyone from the Carr family ever came asking, I was to give them everything. Help them finish what Catherine and Thomas started. He pauses. But you need to understand what you're facing. Blackwell Mining isn't just a company anymore. They're the Valley's largest employer. They fund the schools, the hospital, half the town council. They've spent 80 years building power and influence and connections. Exposing them won't just hurt the guilty. It'll hurt people who depend on them for jobs, for health care, for survival. I know. Elena's voice is quiet, but the truth matters anyway. Chin nods slowly. Yes, it does. He stands. Come with me. We'll get the documents from my house. But we need to be careful. Blackwell has people watching me. Has for years. How do we? My grandson, Chin interrupts. He doesn't work for Blackwell. He's a lawyer in Seattle, specializes in environmental cases, indigenous rights, holding corporations accountable. He's been waiting for me to give him permission to fight. Tonight, I'm giving him permission. Marge speaks up. I'll drive. My car is less conspicuous than James's. Anyone asks, we're just closing up, giving an old man a ride home. She looks at Elena. You'll need to hide in the trunk. If Blackwell's people see you in town, this is over before it starts. Elena doesn't argue. Within minutes, she's curled in the dark trunk of Marge's old Buick, the box of gold clutched to her chest, Catherine's journal pressed against her ribs. The engine starts. The car begins to move. And Elena closes her eyes, trusting these near strangers with her life because she has no other choice. The drive takes 10 minutes that feel like 10 hours. When the trunk finally opens, she's in a garage, the door closed, the space dark except for a single overhead bulb. Chun helps her out, his grip surprisingly strong for an old man. This way. Quickly, they move through his house, tidy, modest, filled with photographs of grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Chun leads them to a narrow staircase, then up into an attic that smells of dust and old paper. He pulls a box from behind the insulation, carries it down to his kitchen table, opens it. Inside are documents that make Elena's breath catch. Deeds, surveys, correspondence, photographs. Everything Chen's father had copied 80 years ago, preserved with the care of a man who knew history, would eventually demand an accounting. This is it, Chen says quietly. This is everything. The Carr family holdings, the Morrison family, the Whitehorse family, 6 others. All of them with legitimate deeds predating Blackwell's claims. All of them defrauded. All of them silenced. Elena spreads the documents across the table, hands shaking. It's not just the Carrs. It's not just Catherine's tragedy. It's a pattern of systematic theft spanning decades, affecting dozens of families, stealing not millions, but potentially billions in mineral wealth. The Whitehorse family, she says suddenly, remembering Catherine's list. Thomas Whitehorse. Is he? Still alive, Chin confirms. Lives on the reservation. In his 90s now, but sharp. His grandfather lost everything to Blackwell. Land, mineral rights. His son to an accident eerily similar to what happened to Thomas Carr. He pulls out more papers. I've kept in touch with Thomas Whitehorse over the years. Comparing notes. Building a case neither of us could prove alone. But together we can prove pattern, prove intent, prove that Blackwell Mining's entire fortune is built on fraud. Chen's voice hardens. But we need more than old documents. We need to show the conspiracy is ongoing, that they're still stealing, still killing, still covering up crimes. Elena thinks of Marcus, of his death ruled accidental, of the way he'd been researching the property boundaries in the weeks before he died, asking questions about mineral surveys, about rights and claims and things that seemed academic at the time, but now feel ominous. Marcus knew. She says, the realization hitting like a physical blow. He found something, didn't he? Something that proved Blackwell was still operating on stolen land. That's why they killed him. Chen's expression softens with sympathy. I don't know what your husband found, but I know he came to see me 3 weeks before he died. Asked about my father's records. Asked if I'd be willing to testify if he'd find proof of ongoing fraud. He pauses. I said yes, but I also warned him to be careful. Told him what happened to people who threatened Blackwell's empire. Elena's throat closes. Marcus had been trying to do exactly what she's doing now. Had been gathering evidence, building a case, preparing to expose them, and they'd killed him for it. Staged an accident that everyone believed, because who would question a tragedy in mountains that claim lives every year? He kept notes, she says suddenly. Marcus kept meticulous notes about everything. If he was researching Blackwell, he would have documented it. She looks up, urgency flooding through her. They're probably still at the cabin, in his office. I never looked. I couldn't bear to go through his things. Her voice cracks. But they might be there. They might be the proof we need that the conspiracy didn't end in 1943. Marge speaks for the first time in minutes. The cabin's being watched. You can't go back there. I don't have to. Elena's mind races. Marcus backed everything up to cloud storage. Obsessive about it. All his research, his notes, everything. If I can access his account. You need internet. A computer. Chun considers. My grandson. He has secure systems. Knows how to protect data from being traced or deleted. If we can get you to Seattle. No. Elena shakes her head. I need to talk to Thomas Whitehorse first. Need his testimony, his evidence, his story. Need to build the case completely before we go public. Because once we do, once Blackwell knows what we have, they'll destroy everything they can, intimidate every witness, use every resource to shut us down. She straightens. We get one shot at this. It has to be perfect. Chen nods slowly. The reservation is 3 hours from here. I can make a call, arrange a meeting. Thomas has been waiting for this as long as I have. Do it. Elena feels something shifting in her chest. Grief giving way to purpose. Isolation transforming into determination. We do this right. We gather everything. Then we hit them with all of it at once. So overwhelming they can't spin it, can't bury it, can't make it go away. Marge pulls out her phone. I'll call my nephew. He's a journalist. Works for a paper in Portland. If we're going public, we need media ready to run the story the moment it breaks. Can't let Blackwell control the narrative. The kitchen becomes a war room. Chin on the phone with Thomas Whitehorse, speaking in low, urgent tones. Marge texting her nephew, explaining in careful code that she has a story that will make his career. Elena spreading documents across the table, organizing evidence, building the case brick by brick. Hours pass. Coffee brews and is consumed. The night deepens outside the windows. And slowly, impossibly, a conspiracy that's held power for 80 years begins to crack. Chin hangs up. Thomas says come tomorrow morning. Early. He'll gather the tribal elders. Some of them remember the old stories. Remember when Blackwell stole from their families. He says if we're finally taking them down, the nation wants to be part of it. Marge looks up from her phone. My nephew's driving up tonight. Says he'll bring a lawyer friend, someone who specializes in corporate fraud. Says if we have what I think we have, they'll want to move fast, file criminal charges, civil suits, freeze assets before Blackwell can hide anything. Elena feels the pieces falling into place. Feels the ghost of Elena Carr standing behind her, steady and satisfied. Feels Marcus somewhere in the mountains, vindicated at last. But then Chen's front door rattles. A knock. Sharp, authoritative. Everyone freezes. Another knock. Then a voice. Mr. Chen? Pine Valley Sheriff's Department. We need to ask you some questions. Elena's heart stops. They found her. Somehow they track her here, or someone saw something, or... Chen moves quickly, grabbing Elena's arm. The basement. There's a root cellar with a hidden entrance. Go. Now. But... They're here for you, but they can't search without a warrant. I'll stall them. You hide. He's already pushing her toward a door in the kitchen floor, pulling it open, revealing wooden stairs descending into darkness. Go! Elena grabs a box, tucks the journal inside her jacket, and descends into the cellar. Marge follows, pulling the door close above them just as the front door opens and heavy boots enter Chen's house. The cellar is cold, dark, smelling of earth and old potatoes. Elena and Marge crouch in the darkness, barely breathing, listening to the voices above. Seen Elena Carr? We have reason to believe she might have made contact with you. Chen's voice calm and steady. I haven't seen Elena Carr in 5 years, not since her husband's funeral. We have a witness who says they saw someone matching her description entering the diner tonight. Says Marge Fletcher drove an unidentified passenger from there to this location. Marge tenses beside Elena. Someone had been watching. Someone had followed them. Marge gave me a ride home from the diner. Chen says, smoothly. She often does. I don't drive well at night anymore. As for passengers, perhaps your witness saw the boxes of supplies Marge is delivering? She helps me with groceries, sometimes. A long pause. We like to look around, just to be sure. Do you have a warrant? Another pause. Not yet, but we can get one. Then I'd appreciate if you came back with proper authorization. I'm an old man, officers. I need my rest. And I don't appreciate being harassed in my own home without legal cause. Elena holds her breath. Chen's voice is steady, almost bored, but she can hear the steel underneath. He's fought Blackwell's influence for 40 years. He won't fold now. Finally, we'll be back. Don't leave town, Mr. Chan. I'm 83. I never leave town. The boots retreat. The front door closes. But Chen doesn't open the cellar door. Not yet. They wait in the darkness, counting minutes, making sure the deputies are really gone. When Chen finally opens the door, his face is grave. They're not just searching. They're coordinating with Blackwell. I recognize one of those deputies. His brother works for the mining company. This is worse than I thought. How deep does it go? Elena climbs out of the cellar, legs cramping, deep enough that we can't trust local law enforcement. Deep enough that going to the county sheriff will get you arrested or worse. Chen runs a hand through his silver hair. We need to go over their heads. State police, federal authorities. Someone Blackwell hasn't bought yet. Marge speaks quietly. My nephew knows people at the FBI. Environmental Crimes Division. They've been looking for a way to investigate Blackwell. Suspicions about illegal mining practices, water contamination, safety violations. If we can give them evidence of criminal conspiracy going back decades, they'll have jurisdiction. Chen finishes. They'll have power to investigate regardless of local corruption. Elena nods slowly. Then we need everything. Need it all documented, organized, ready to present. Need to move fast before they get that warrant, before they find a way to stop us. The reservation, Chen says. Tomorrow morning, we meet Thomas Whitehorse, get his testimony and evidence. Then we go straight to Seattle with everything. My grandson can file the paperwork, while Marge's nephew breaks the story. We hit them from all sides at once. It's not a perfect plan. It still has holes. Still depends on things going right when so much could go wrong. But it's a plan. It's action. It's fighting back. I'll take you to the reservation. Marge says, we leave before dawn. Take back roads they won't be watching. You'll stay hidden in my trunk until we're clear of the valley. Elena wants to argue, wants to say she's done hiding, but she knows Marge is right. One more day of hiding. One more day of being careful. Then they'll have everything they need to bring Blackwell down. Chun packs the documents carefully, places them in a waterproof case. These don't leave my sight until we hand them to my grandson. 80 years my family has protected this evidence. I won't fail now. They spend the rest of the night preparing, organizing evidence, making copies, creating backup plans for the backup plans. Elena calls Chen's grandson from a burner phone Marge reduces from somewhere, explains the situation in careful terms, gets confirmation that he'll be ready tomorrow to move fast. By the time the sky begins to lighten, they're ready. Elena climbs back into Marge's trunk with a box of gold, Catherine's journal, and a determination that burns brighter than fear. Chin secures his father's documents. Marge checks the route one more time. If we get stopped, Marge says quietly, if something goes wrong. It won't, Elena says with more confidence than she feels. We've come too far. The truth has waited too long. Today, we finish what Catherine started. The trunk closes. The engine starts. The car begins to move through the pre-dawn darkness, carrying evidence of crimes that span generations, carrying the hopes of families who've waited decades for justice, carrying 3 people who decided that courage matters more than safety. Behind them, Pine Valley sleeps, unaware that its largest employer is about to fall. Behind them, Blackwell Mining continues its operations, confident that 80 years of power can't be threatened by one woman and a box of old documents. Behind them, the mountain holds its secrets close. But ahead, on tribal land where Blackwell's influence doesn't reach, an old man waits with his own evidence, his own testimony, his own piece of the truth. And sometimes, Elena thinks as the miles disappear beneath Marge's tires, sometimes justice doesn't come all at once. Sometimes it accumulates slowly, piece by piece, witness by witness, truth by truth, until the weight becomes too heavy to deny. Sometimes the truth doesn't die. It just waits. And this morning, at last, the waiting ends. The reservation appears through the morning mist like a memory becoming solid. Elena has never been here before. The Stillwater Reservation sits 40 miles north of Pine Valley, technically in the same county, but existing in a separate world, one where Blackwell's influence weakens at the boundary line, where tribal sovereignty creates space for truths the valley prefers to forget. Marge's car pulls up to a modest house on the edge of the community. Before she can knock, the door opens, revealing a man so old he seems carved from the same stone as the mountains themselves. Thomas Whitehorse. His face is a map of wrinkles, his hair pure white and worn in a long braid, but his eyes are black and sharp as obsidian. Catherine Carr's granddaughter-in-law, he says, his voice surprisingly strong. I wondered if you'd ever come. Wondered if the mountain would finally give up its secrets. Elena climbs out of the trunk, stiff and aching. You knew about the evidence? Suspected. My grandfather told me stories before he died. Stories about Thomas Carr finding gold in his creek, about how the mining company wanted it, about how men who refused to be bought sometimes have accidents. Thomas steps aside, gestures them in. Stories about Catherine Carr, who was smarter than all of them, who had something they never found. His eyes fix on the box in Elena's arms. I see the stories were true. Inside, the house smells of sage and coffee. For other elders sit waiting, their faces grave and expectant. Thomas introduces them. Margaret Whitehorse, his wife. Joseph Raincrow, whose grandfather lost land to Blackwell in 1947. Sarah Brightwater, whose uncle died in a mining accident in 1952. And Michael Stormcloud, the tribal attorney who's been fighting Blackwell's encroachment for 20 years. Show them, Thomas says simply. Elena spreads everything on the table. The gold bars gleam in the morning light. Catherine's journal eyes open to pages documenting murder and theft. Chen's documents prove pattern and conspiracy. And as the elders read, as they see their families' names in Catherine's careful script, as they recognize the stories their grandparents told, something shifts in the room. Grief, rage, vindication, all of it mixing together into something powerful and painful and long overdue. My grandfather's land, Joseph says, touching a deed with trembling fingers. He talked about it until the day he died. Said Blackwell stole it. Said the courts wouldn't listen because he was Indian and Blackwell was white and money talked louder than truth. He looks up, eyes wet. He died thinking justice would never come. It's coming now, Thomas says firmly. He stands, moves to a locked cabinet, pulls out a box similar to Chen's. I've been keeping records too. Every family on this reservation that Blackwell defrauded, every accident that wasn't, every forged document, every stolen claim, every lie they told. He sets the box on the table. 47 families, thousands of acres, billions in stolen mineral wealth. and 63 years of silence because we learned that speaking truth to power gets you killed. Michael Stormcloud, the attorney, leans forward. If we're doing this, if we're finally taking him down, we need to do it right. Blackwell has an army of lawyers. They'll attack every document, question every witness, tie this up in courts for years. He looks at Elena. We need modern evidence. We need proof the conspiracy is ongoing. Otherwise, they'll claim it's all ancient history, that everyone involved is dead, that there's no one left to prosecute. Elena thinks of Marcus, of his notes, his research, his death 5 years ago that suddenly feels very recent, very deliberate. My husband was investigating them. 3 weeks before he died, he went to see James Chun, asked about the old fraud. I think he found proof that Blackwell is still operating on stolen land, still using forged documents, still maintaining the lie. She looks at Michael. If I can access his cloud storage, his research notes, we can prove ongoing criminal conspiracy, Michael finishes. That opens everything up. That makes it current, prosecutable, impossible to dismiss as ancient history. Marge speaks up. My nephew's lawyer friend, the one who specializes in corporate fraud. She said if we have proof of ongoing conspiracy, the FBI has jurisdiction. Environmental crimes, wire fraud, racketeering. They can bring federal charges that bypass local corruption entirely. Thomas nods slowly. Then we need that proof. Need it today. Need to move before Blackwell realizes what we're building. He looks at Elena. Can you access your husband's files? If I have internet and his login credentials. Elena's mind races. I have his passwords. We shared everything, trusted each other completely. I never looked because I couldn't bear to see what he was working on when he died. But it's all there. It has to be. Michael pulls out a laptop. Use my connection. It's encrypted, secure, routes through tribal servers that Blackwell can't monitor. He opens it, slides it across to Elena. Find what your husband found. Give us the final piece. Elena's hands shake as she navigates to the cloud storage portal. Types Marcus's email. Types the password they shared. Carr Mountain 1898. A combination of their name and the date on Catherine's original deeds. The system accepts it. His files appear on the screen. Hundreds of documents. Spreadsheets. Maps. Photographs. 5 years of research organized in folders labeled with dates and cryptic titles. Elena's throat tightens. This is Marcus's voice from beyond the grave, his careful documentation, his determination to expose truth no matter the cost. She opens a most recent folder, dated 3 weeks before his death, titled simply, Blackwell Fraud, Active. Inside are documents that make her breath catch. Modern surveys showing Blackwell's current mining operations. Maps comparing those operations to the original property boundaries. Evidence that Blackwell has been mining on land they don't legally own, land that still belongs, according to legitimate deeds, to the Carr family, the Whitehorse family, and 6 others. But there's more. Marcus had found recent emails. How? Elena doesn't want to know. Internal Blackwell communications discussing the Carr problem and managing indigenous claims and maintaining operational security. Emails dated from 2 to 5 years ago. Emails that reference specific individuals. David Hartwell, Blackwell CEO. The Carr situation needs to be handled quietly before he files a lawsuit that could expose our entire operation in the Northwest Quadrant. Robert Chun, head of operations. I've contacted our friends in the Sheriff's Department. They're monitoring Carr's activities. If he becomes a legal threat, we have options. Jennifer Marsh, Chief Legal Officer. Recommend immediate action. The indigenous claims are gaining traction. If the Whitehorse family successfully challenges our rights, it could invalidate 70 years of operations. Financial exposure, $4 to $7 billion. Elena reads with growing horror and clarity. They'd known. Blackwell had known their empire was built on fraud. Had known families like the Carrs and Whitehorse could challenge them. Had actively conspired to prevent that challenge through surveillance, intimidation, and, the implication is clear, elimination. The final document in the folder is dated 2 days before Marcus's death. A memo from David Hartwell to security consultant Thomas Reeves. Carr is preparing to file suit. Has contacted multiple families, gathering evidence. Risk assessment. Critical. Recommend immediate intervention. Make it look natural. Climbing accident, animal attack. Something consistent with his lifestyle. No traces. No questions. Elena's vision blurs. Her chest constricts so tightly she can't breathe. They killed him. Planned it. Ordered it. Made it happen with the casual cruelty of men, for whom murder is just another business expense. Elena? Chen's voice concerned. What did you find? She can't speak. Can only turn the laptop so they can all see. Can only watch as 7 people read the evidence of conspiracy, of murder, of evil masquerading as enterprise. The silence that follows is absolute. Then Thomas Whitehorse slams his hand on the table with enough force to make the gold bars jump. Enough, he says, voice shaking with rage. 80 years of silence. 80 years of stolen justice. 80 years of good people dying while evil men prosper. He looks around the table, making eye contact with each person. Today we end this. Today we bring them to their knees. Today we finish what Catherine Carr started and Marcus Carr died for. Michael is already on his phone. I'm calling the FBI field office in Seattle. Sending them everything. The historical fraud, the ongoing conspiracy, the evidence of murder. I'm also contacting the state attorney general, the Tribal Gaming Commission, anyone with authority to investigate and prosecute. He looks at Elena. Can I download your husband's files? Take everything. Copy it all. Spread it everywhere so they can't destroy it. Elena's voice is steady now, anger burning to grief, purpose replacing shock. Make sure Marcus's death means something. Make sure Catherine's 80-year wait wasn't in vain. Marge is texting furiously. My nephew is 3 hours out. I'm sending him everything now. He'll have the story ready to publish the moment we give the word. I'm also contacting every news outlet I can think of. When this breaks, it breaks everywhere at once. Chun is on another phone with his grandson. We're filing civil suits this morning. Wrongful death for Marcus, death for the mineral rights, fraud for every forged document, racketeering for the pattern of conspiracy. I'm naming David Hartwell personally, Robert Chun, Jennifer Marsh, every executive we can identify. We're going after their personal assets, their freedom, everything. The room becomes a hurricane of activity. Phones ringing, documents being scanned and emailed and copied, elders adding their testimony, their evidence, their names to a lawsuit that grows larger by the minute. Elena sits in the center of it all, watching justice accumulate like a storm, feeling Catherine's presence like a hand on her shoulder. The truth doesn't die. It just waits. And now, at last, it's done waiting. An hour passes. 2. The evidence spreads through official channels like wildfire. Michael gets confirmation. The FBI is opening an investigation. The state attorney general's office is reviewing the case. Tribal authorities are filing their own charges. And Marge's nephew is ready to publish the story that will blow open 80 years of corruption. We need to go public now, Michael says, before Blackwell realizes what's happening and starts destroying evidence, before they silence witnesses or flee the country. We hit them now while they think they're safe. Thomas stands. Then let's do it. Let's tell the world what Blackwell mining really is. They gather in front of Michael's computer, connected via video conference to the FBI agent assigned to case, Chen's grandson in Seattle with legal papers ready to file, Marge's nephew with his editor at the Portland paper, and a tribal council that's been waiting decades for this moment. Elena speaks first, because this is her burden to carry, her husband's legacy to honor, her voice to add to Catherine's. My name is Elena Carr, she says to the camera, to the faces watching from different places, to the future that will remember this moment. 80 years ago, my husband's great-grandmother, Catherine Carr, witnessed the murder of her husband and the theft of her family's land by Blackwell Mining Company. She couldn't get justice in 1943. She was a widow in a system that didn't value women's testimony, fighting a company with money and power and connections. So she did something extraordinary. She hid the evidence, documented everything. waited for someone from her bloodline to find it and finish what she started. 5 years ago, my husband Marcus found proof that Blackwell's fraud was ongoing, that their empire was built on murder and theft that continues to this day. They killed him for it, made it look like an accident, just like they killed Thomas Carr in 1943, just like they've killed dozens of people over 80 years who threatened their lie. But truth is patient, truth is stubborn, and truth ultimately wins. She holds up Catherine's journal to the camera. This is Catherine Carr's testimony, written in 1943, documenting her husband's murder and Blackwell's fraud. This, she gestures to the gold bars, is the gold that started everything, that Thomas Carr found on his own land, that Blackwell wanted badly enough to kill for. And these, she indicates the stacks of documents now covering the table, are deeds proving legal ownership, surveys showing Blackwell has been mining on stolen land for 80 years, and internal emails proving they knew they were committing fraud, proving they conspired to cover it up, proving they murdered my husband to protect their secret. Thomas Whitehorse moves beside her. I am Thomas Whitehorse, Stillwater Nation. My grandfather lost his land to Blackwell fraud in 1945. 47 families on this reservation were defrauded. We have our own documentation, our own evidence, our own testimony. Today, we join Elena Carr in demanding justice. James Chin speaks next. My father was forced to participate in Blackwell's fraud in 1943. It haunted him until he died. He gave me copies of the original deeds, told me to wait for the right moment. That moment is now. One by one, the others add their voices, the elders sharing stories passed down through generations. Michael Stormcloud presenting the legal case. Chen's grandson confirming that lawsuits are being filed this moment. Marge's nephew announcing that the story will run in tomorrow's paper, that other outlets are picking it up, that the truth is spreading too fast for Blackwell to contain. And through it all, the FBI agent listens, taking notes, asking questions, building the case that will bring federal charges. The state attorney general's representative confirms they're opening their own investigation. The tribal council declares that Blackwell mining is no longer welcome on any land under their jurisdiction. The press conference, for that's what's become, lasts 3 hours. By the time it ends, the story is everywhere. Social media explodes with shares and outrage. News vans are heading to Pine Valley. Protesters are gathering outside Blackwell's corporate headquarters. Shareholders are panicking. Stock prices are plummeting. And in Pine Valley, for men in black trucks receive urgent calls, realize they've been chasing a woman who's just destroyed their employer, realize they've lost. Elena watches it unfold on Michael's computer, watches the empire collapse in real time, watches justice, delayed for 80 years, finally arrive with the force of an avalanche. But she doesn't feel triumphant. She feels exhausted, grieving, hollow in a way that victory can't fill. Thomas Whitehorse seems to sense it. He places a weathered hand on her shoulder. Your husband is proud of you. Catherine is proud of you. The mountain is proud of you. I just miss him, Elena whispers. I just want him back. This doesn't bring him back. No, Thomas agrees quietly. Justice doesn't resurrect the dead. It just ensures they didn't die for nothing. It just makes their sacrifice mean something. He squeezes her shoulder gently. You've done that. You've made Marcus's death matter. You've made Catherine's 80-year wait matter. You've made all our losses matter. Marge appears with coffee, with food, with the practical care of a woman who knows that revolution still requires eating. The FBI wants you in Seattle tomorrow for formal testimony. Chen's grandson has you scheduled for depositions. The press wants interviews. It's going to be chaos for a while. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more incredible mountain stories like this one. Elena nods, accepting it all, accepting that her isolation is over, that she's about to become the face of the largest corporate fraud case in regional history, that her life will never return to the quiet mountain existence she'd built. But maybe that's okay. Maybe that isolation was never meant to be permanent. Maybe it was just a chrysalis, a space to grieve and heal and wait until the moment came when she was needed to do something bigger than survival. "What about the wolf?" she asked suddenly, the question surprising even herself. "What happens to the wolf?" The elders exchange glances. Finally, Sarah Brightwater speaks, her voice soft. "The wolf is not your concern anymore. The wolf has done what it came to do. It brought you to the truth when you needed it, guided you to safety when you were hunted. Now its work is finished." But how did it know? How did it understand what needed to happen? Elena knows she sounds desperate, knows she's asking for answers that don't follow logic, but she needs to understand. Thomas Whitehorse smiles, the expression both sad and knowing. The mountain has always had guardians, spirits, whatever you want to call them. Catherine Carr prayed to the mountain when she hid that evidence, asked it to protect the truth until the right person found it, asked it to send help when that person needed it. He pauses. Sometimes the mountain listens. Sometimes it answers. Sometimes it sends a wolf. It's not a scientific answer, not a rational explanation. But standing in this room, surrounded by evidence of impossible things, of 80-year conspiracies maintained, of women who had truth so perfectly it waded through generations, of justice that bent but never broke, Elena finds she can accept mystery. The wolf was there. The wolf helped her. That's enough. The next days blur together in a chaos of testimony and interviews and legal proceedings. Elena gives her statement to the FBI, provides copies of everything, watches as federal agents raid Blackwell's offices and arrest executives in real time. David Hartwell is arrested at SeaTac Airport, trying to flee to a country without extradition. Robertson is found in his lake house, already in the process of destroying documents. Jennifer Marsh attempts to claim attorney-client privilege, but the crime-fraud exception ensures her communications are fair game. The lawsuits multiply. Wrongful death suits from Marcus's estate and 3 other families whose loved ones died in accidents. Fraud suits from the Carr family, the Whitehorse family, and 9 others whose land was stolen. Environmental violations. Worker safety violations. Racketeering charges that threaten to seize every asset Blackwell owns. The media coverage is relentless. Catherine's story becomes national news. The woman who couldn't get justice in 1943, but ensured her granddaughter-in-law would in 2024. Marcus becomes a martyr, his murder galvanizing public opinion against corporate corruption. The Stillwater Nation becomes a symbol of indigenous resilience, of communities that never stopped fighting even when the system failed them. And Elena becomes something she never wanted to be. A hero, a symbol, the mountain woman who took down an empire. She hates it, hates the cameras and the questions and the way strangers act like they know her, hates being reduced to a soundbite, an inspirational story, a meme about justice prevailing. But she endures it because Thomas is right. This makes Marcus's death matter, makes Catherine's sacrifice meaningful, makes all the loss and pain and grief transform into something larger than itself. 3 weeks after the press conference, the first major victory comes. A federal judge freezes all Blackwell assets pending the outcome of the criminal trial. The company can't operate, can't pay lawyers, can't function. Effectively, Blackwell Mining Company ceases to exist, its empire dismantled by the same legal system that once protected it. 6 weeks later, the first executive pleads guilty. Robert Chun, facing life in prison, agrees to testify against the others in exchange for a reduced sentence. His testimony confirms everything: the conspiracy to defraud families, the orders to handle problems, the deliberate murder of Thomas Carr, Marcus Carr, and 11 others over 80 years. 3 months later, on a cold February morning, Elena stands in a federal courtroom and watches David Hartwell sentenced to 35 years in prison for murder, fraud, and racketeering. Jennifer Marsh receives 20 years. For other executives receive sentences ranging from 10 to 25 years. The judge reads a statement that brings tears to Elena's eyes. This court finds that Blackwell Mining Company was, from its inception, a criminal enterprise built on murder and theft, that it maintained this criminality for 8 decades through corruption, violence, and the systematic oppression of vulnerable populations, and that the courage of Catherine Carr, who preserved truth when the system failed her, and Elena Carr, who brought that truth to light at great personal cost, has ensured that justice, though long delayed, has finally been served. Outside the courthouse, Elena gives her final press conference. This isn't just about the Carr family or Blackwell mining, she says. It's about how easy it is for the powerful to oppress the vulnerable when we allow secrecy and corruption to flourish. It's about how ordinary people, women like Catherine, indigenous families like the White Horse, immigrants like the Chin family, can preserve truth even when the system tries to bury it. And it's about remembering that justice delayed is not justice denied, as long as someone is willing to keep fighting. She looks directly into the cameras. My husband, Marcus, died fighting for truth. Catherine Carr spent 80 years waiting for truth to matter. Today, finally, their fight is finished. Today, truth wins. Spring comes to the mountains slowly, the snow melting in reluctant patches, revealing the earth beneath. Elena stands on her porch. Her repaired porch, part of the settlement that returned ownership of the land to the Carr estate and provided compensation for 80 years of stolen mineral wealth. The cabin is restored now. Marcus's workshop in the barn has been converted into an office where Elena manages a foundation she's created, the Catherine Carr Justice Fund, dedicated to helping families fight corporate fraud and corruption. The gold bars Catherine hid are now funding legal aid for the powerless, environmental protection for mountains, and scholarships for indigenous students. Elena doesn't need the money personally. The settlement was substantial, hundreds of millions, and she's kept only enough to live simply, to stay in these mountains that shaped her, to honor the life Marcus wanted them to build together. She's not alone anymore. James Chin visits weekly, finally able to tell his father's story without fear. Thomas Whitehorse comes less often. He's elderly. The travel is hard. But they talk by phone, sharing the satisfaction of warriors who won their final battle. Marge brings groceries and gossip from town, where Blackwell's absence has created space for new businesses, new energy, new hope. And sometimes, on quiet mornings when the mist hangs low over the ridge, Elena sees a silver shape moving through the trees, never close enough to be certain, never staying long enough to approach. Just there, watching, reminding her that the mountain still has its guardians, that truth still has its defenders, that mystery and reality interweave in ways she'll never fully understand. She doesn't try to follow anymore, doesn't need to. The wolf brought her to truth when she needed it. Now truth is spoken, justice is served, and the wolf's work is done. Hers too, in a way. The fight is over. The evidence is presented. The guilty are punished. All that remains is living, really living, not just surviving. In a world where Marcus's death meant something, where Catherine's sacrifice mattered, where good people's struggles weren't in vain. It's harder than she expected, this business of living. Grief doesn't disappear just because justice is served. Loss doesn't heal simply because meaning is found. There are still mornings when she wakes reaching for Marcus, still nights when the silence feels crushing, still moments when she questions every decision that led her to this solitary life. But there are other moments too, moments when she feels Catherine's strength in her bones, feels connected to something larger than herself. Moments when helping another family fight corporate injustice feels like the most important work she's ever done. Moments when standing on this mountain, looking out over wilderness that's now protected in perpetuity, feels like home in a way nothing else ever has. On this particular morning, as spring sun melts the last patches of winter snow, as birds return from their southern migrations, as the forest wakes from its long sleep, Elena makes coffee and sits on her porch and opens her laptop. She's writing a book. Catherine's story, Marcus's story, her story, all woven together into a testament to persistence, to courage, to the power of truth preserved across generations. It's hard work, forcing memory into words, making sense of chaos, finding narrative in tragedy. But it's important work. Work that ensures Catherine's voice echoes beyond legal proceedings, beyond newspaper articles, beyond the moment. Work that makes her feel, for the first time in 5 years, like she has a purpose beyond survival. A message appears on her screen from a publisher who's interested in the book. They want to move forward, want to publish by next year, want to ensure Catherine's story reaches as many people as possible. Elena smiles, types her acceptance, closes a laptop, and then, because the morning is beautiful and the mountains are calling and life is something to be lived, not just endured, She pulls on her boots, grabs her pack, and heads out to walk the ridge trail she knows by heart. She passes the barn where Catherine hid truth for 80 years. Passes a spot where the wolf appeared 3 days that changed everything. Passes Marcus's grave, a simple stone marker near the cliff he loved, with an inscription she chose carefully. He died fighting for truth. He won. She climbs higher, following paths that wind through timber and over stone, paths that lead away from civilization and into the wild heart of the mountains. And as she climbs, she feels lighter somehow, unburdened by secrets she's no longer carrying alone, free by justice she's finally seen served, healed by time and purpose in the slow, patient work of rebuilding a life. At the ridge top, she stops. The valley spreads below, Pine Valley recovering, the reservation prospering, the mountain standing eternal. She can see it all from here, the whole landscape of her life, the geography of everything she's fought for. And somewhere in the forest behind her, though she doesn't turn to look, a wolf howls. The sound carries across the ridge, wild and free and achingly beautiful. Elena closes her eyes, listens to Mountain's voice, and feels something fundamental settle in her chest. Not happiness, exactly, not completion, but peace. The kind of peace that comes from knowing you've done what you were meant to do, survived what you needed to survive, fought the battles that mattered most. She stays there a long time, suspended between earth and sky, between past and future, between who she was and who she's becoming. And when she finally turns to descend, to return to her cabin and her work and her slowly rebuilding life, she carries with her the mountain's blessing and Catherine's legacy and Marcus's love. She carries the truth, and the truth, at long last, has set her free. Epilogue, 2 years later. The book launches on a Tuesday in spring, exactly 2 years after the day the wolf first appeared on Elena's porch. The truth doesn't die. A mountain woman's fight against corporate corruption debuts at number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list, climbing to number 1 within 2 weeks. The Elena Carr Justice Fund has helped 23 families challenge corporate fraud. 12 cases have been won, recovering over $400 million in stolen wealth. Another 15 cases are pending. The fund has become a model for how settlements can be used to create lasting change rather than just personal wealth. The Stillwater Nation has used their settlement to buy back ancestral lands, to fund education and health care, to ensure future generations have resources their grandparents were denied. The Tribal College now offers courses on indigenous legal rights, on fighting corporate oppression, on how ordinary people can challenge extraordinary power. Thomas Whitehorse passes away peacefully in his sleep at age 94, surrounded by great-great-grandchildren, secure in the knowledge that his grandfather's story has been told, that justice has been served, that the fight is won. Elena speaks at his funeral, honoring a warrior who never gave up, who preserved truth until the moment came to use it. James Chen's health improves once the burden of his father's secret is lifted. He lives to see his 91st birthday, attended by grandchildren who now understand why he kept those boxes in his attic for 40 years, why he never stopped believing truth would matter. Marge Fletcher retires from the diner, passes it to her nephew, spends her days volunteering with the Justice Fund, and telling anyone who'll listen about the time she hid Elena Carr in her trunk and helped take down the Valley's biggest employer. She becomes something of a local legend, proof that ordinary courage can change the world. And Elena stays in the mountains. Some people ask why. With her money, she could live anywhere, do anything, but she knows these mountains saved her, gave her isolation when she needed it, gave her purpose when she was ready, gave her truth when the time came to fight. She leads hikers sometimes now, showing them the trails Marcus loved, telling Catherine's story at the spots where it happened. She speaks at colleges and conferences about corporate accountability, about environmental justice, about how to fight systems designed to silence you. She writes a second book, this one about healing after loss, about finding purpose in grief, about rebuilding lives from ruins. And sometimes, on quiet mornings when the mist hangs low and the forest holds its breath, she sees a silver shape moving through the trees. She doesn't know if it's the same wolf. Wolves don't live long enough for that to be possible. But maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe the mountain has many guardians, many ways of protecting truth. many methods of helping those who need it. Maybe, in the end, that's the real lesson Catherine was teaching. That truth doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. That justice doesn't need to be fast to be real. That courage doesn't need to be fearless to be effective. Sometimes you just need to be stubborn enough to preserve what matters, patient enough to wait for the right moment, brave enough to act when that moment comes. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, the mountain sends a wolf to guide you. Elena stands on her porch on this spring morning, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the ridge. Her book sits on the table behind her, Catherine's journal, now carefully preserved in archival materials, rests in a safety deposit box, and Marcus's photograph hangs on the wall where she can see it every day. She's not the same woman who opened her door 3 years ago to find a wolf that wouldn't leave. That woman was broken by grief, isolated by pain, hiding from life. This woman has fought an empire and won, has found purpose in loss, has learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering in ways that honor rather than destroy. She raises her coffee cup to the mountains, to Catherine, to Marcus, to all the people whose sacrifices made this moment possible. We did it, she whispers to the wind. We told the truth. We got justice. We won. The mountains don't answer. They never do. But somehow, in the quality of the silence, in the way the morning light touches the ridges, in the distant howl of a wolf somewhere deep in the wilderness, Elena feels their approval. The truth didn't die. It just waited, and waiting, in the end, was enough. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you love this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.